Hey guys, welcome to today's video. One of the number one questions that I get asked by my clients is how can they use ClickUp better to manage their clients inside of the platform. Now, if you have been watching my videos for a while, you'll no doubt see I do have some videos relating to client management already on the channel, which I will link at the end of this video. However, client management in ClickUp can 100% be covered with ease across many processes. So in today's video, I thought it would be a really cool idea to walk you through what some of those processes are, to give you some inspiration, to help you to get your processes back on track. And if you have been feeling like your client process is a little bit clunky, a bit disorganized, hopefully this can inspire you to take action, because the client process, your client experience in your business is one of the most costly experiences that you will have to focus on. If you don't have a streamlined or an elevated client experience, you will definitely find that your clients will be feeling that knockback effect, and it could affect your growth in the long run. So I don't want that for you, my friend. I want you to grow and thrive. And so we are going to dive into how you can leverage ClickUp to do just that. And if you're new here and wondering, who is this girl? My name is Nicola Melinda. I am a verified ClickUp consultant. For the last 4 years, I have been working in the online space, helping my clients who are service providers, agency owners, to really streamline all of their processes. And I actually started my business by specializing in client experience. So this is right up my street. If you like what you see, make sure you do hit subscribe. I have new videos coming out every single week to help you to leverage ClickUp more in your business. Okay, so in this video, we're focusing on client management and the best way to work with your clients to deliver the service that your clients have opted in for inside of ClickUp. And so we're going to walk through some ways to help you organize your client work, organize your structure in ClickUp, and the best ways for you to really plan this out. So I've got a whiteboard view open here because I just want to map out what type of services you could actually be delivering to your clients at a high level. So there's different services or service models as a service provider that we will be focusing on. And so let's list out what they really could be. So there are 3 main models that come to mind. So we've got intensives, which will be really quick services. So they could be your 90-minute services, your VIP days, your one-off offers. But then you also have your projects, and your projects come with a larger scope as well. So with projects, we're looking at perhaps a sprint project, or project could be a VIP day as well. So let's just put projects in there. But there's a little bit more to the scope of work that's required. So I'll put project/VIP days as options. So projects predominantly is what we focus on in my business. And then the third area or third type of service is retainers. And these are also very popular for service-based businesses, agencies, consulting firms, retainer services. So you have 3 different types of services, all of which are offered in 3 different types of ways. Intensives are very, very quick services. So it could be a 90-minute or a 2-hour call with a client. So you might deem them as consulting calls, strategy calls. Perhaps you do some really quick implementation if it can call for that on the service. Then you've got your projects, your VIP days, and these are the more in-depth services. They're high ticket. Your clients will probably be working with you maybe from anything from a week to maybe a month. It could be a longer scope project as well. Just depends on how you deliver that service. And then you have retainers. Retainers are your clients that work with you month in, month out. They could be for your social media management clients, your monthly marketing clients, your operational clients, whatever type of retainer services that you offer. Now, I have worked in all 3 of these buckets. My business has services in all 3 of these types of services. So I know a thing or two about organising your services in ClickUp. So where on earth do we start? If you have 3 different types of services and perhaps you just have one client, and that client may start with working with you as an intensive client, then move into a project, then move into a retainer, or they may come on board to work with you in a project and then go into a retainer, and so forth. But the message is that that one client can invest in multiple services with you. So what we want to do is keep our ClickUp workspace as organized and streamlined as possible, meaning that we don't necessarily want to be creating lots of new folders and lists all over the place. We want to keep things really simple. Okay, so let's see how this translates now inside of the ClickUp workspace. So as you can see, we've got the spaces here on the left-hand side, and I have one space that is dedicated to clients. So it doesn't matter whether this is clients, delivery, services, however you choose to name this space, this is where you're going to house all of your client work in this one area. And if we expand it, you can see here that each client has its own folder. So client 1 has its own folder, client 2 and client 3. So the reason why we do that is because then we can group all of these services under one client, meaning that if you have different members of your team working on different projects, you can then split the work into its own various list. And so that's what we're going to be showing you, how to organize the project work within that client. So the client folder 1, they've got a couple of projects going on. So we've got a website build, they've got retainer tasks, they've also got marketing tasks that we do for them. So in this particular client, we have one big project that's going on, but they are also working with us in a retainer capacity as well. So you may have different team members who are working on different projects or different tasks, and so they will need to see the work outlined to them in different lists. So that's why we can split this work out, but it's much easier to organize the work in this way. Instead of just having one list and dumping everything, you can then start to split out the work that's coming up. If you have projects that are going to come up in future, you can also create new lists for that client and start planning out those projects in advance. So that's one example of how we are organizing the work inside of the client folder. So you may be thinking, well, where do I even start to put onboarding tasks for my clients if you're onboarding new clients? So you have the client folder here, which is absolutely great. But before you can do any of the services that we mentioned before, you actually need to onboard your clients, right? So let's go back a little bit, a couple of steps, and let's look at where we can put our onboarding tasks. So the client 3 folder is more of a well fleshed out example of what we can be doing with our clients. So at the top here, you can see the first list that we have in place is client onboarding. Now, this is where I would recommend to house the onboarding or offboarding tasks for your clients. So you can do this in a couple of ways. You can call it client admin or client management. If you want to store onboarding tasks, perhaps you manage payment and billing as well for your clients, and then offboarding tasks, you can put them into one list and you can either call it client admin, or you can split out your list as I've done in this example and called it client onboarding. Now, all of the tasks that need to be done for the onboarding this particular client are all listed out. And the good thing about this is we can assign this to a team member. So if you've got a project manager, a VA, an OBM who's doing this, you can assign this to that person. You can set due dates as well, but it also means that you know that these are the things that need to be done to ensure that your client is set up and ready to work with you in any of the additional projects. So one of the other tasks you might add to this list is actually set up client project. So you might have that down as an obvious task to say, we need to set up the client project inside of ClickUp. If you're working with your client in ClickUp, then you'll need to ensure that they're invited into ClickUp as well. So this is one way that I will organize onboarding tasks, and the same for offboarding as well. So if you are doing onboarding and offboarding and you're grouping this in one particular list, here's another way that you can organize the tasks so that everyone knows what type of tasks these are. So you can either use a drop-down field, and you can use a drop-down field to define whether this is onboarding or offboarding, or you can label your task to say what type of a task this is actually going to be. The difference between the drop-downs and the labels is a drop-down field is just a one option, whereas a label field, you can apply multiple options to it. So you could actually do this as a drop-down field, and let's just say the client admin task, and let's just put onboarding. Client admin. So if we add in these options, and let's just add some colors so that we can split that up. Okay, so I've added in some additional tasks here because we're also going to show you how to organize this on another level as well. So here we're just going to highlight the tasks that are for onboarding, and let's just capture all of these. And what we're going to do is we're going to categorize these tasks based on the type of tasks that they are. So these are all of our onboarding tasks, and let's go ahead and capture our offboarding tasks. And next we have just client admin. So we'll go ahead and just update these tasks to reflect that this is just ongoing client admin. Perfect, so we've categorized our tasks as to what type of tasks they are. Next, what we can do is choose how we want to group them. So I'm going to choose to group them based on the task type, and we're just going to save that view. So we've got all of our now client admin tasks all organized. So this list now, we could rename it to be client admin instead of client onboarding, because it's going to capture all of the admin management tasks for this particular client. So now here's another cute feature that ClickUp has that we can utilize. So I'm going to actually highlight a couple of admin tasks here. So we've got client meetings and billing. So what I'm going to do is actually change a couple of the tasks and define them by task type. So what that means is that instead of it being an actionable task, we can turn this into a type of task. So I'm going to change client meeting into a task type, and I'm actually just going to create a new task type. So if we click on edit, we can actually create a new task type. There are some recommended task types. Now this is another way for you to organize and define the work that you have inside of ClickUp. So let's call this client meeting, and let's put an icon in there as well, put a briefcase there, and we'll create that task type. So we've got a new task type that we can utilize. So I'm also going to create another task type, and we're going to call this one billing, call it billing, and again let's add in our icon and back to our workspace. So the benefit of these tasks is that we can now start to define and organize the tasks that are going into ClickUp on a deeper level. So even though they're not actionable tasks, we can still keep them inside of client admin, and we can change the way that these tasks will show up now. So if I say that this is client meeting, let's change the task type. We've got our new task types in place, so client meeting, and you'll see our task update. Now this is updated as a client meeting, and the same is for billing. So we've got prepare billing. Let's change that task type to a billing. Now what we can do is then create some subtasks. So it could be first invoice, second invoice, send final invoice. These will be the actionable tasks for that particular piece of billing. The next is your client meetings. So you may have project call, kickoff call. So in this particular scenario, you could then start to filter your views based on the task types that you have in place. So we have client admin, but some of this is more just project updates and admin for the team. Then there may be other client admin that you want to view differently. So you could build this list out. So for example, if I just wanted to have a view of all of the client meetings that are scheduled, let's just say we've got a calendar of the client meetings that are being scheduled. So what we'll do is we'll change all of these to be client meeting task types, because that's what they are. And we'll do the same for our billing tasks as well. We'll change those to be... Now we could set up a calendar view if we wanted to view our client meetings on the calendar, and we could filter that based on the task type. So if I only wanted to see, we could filter this. Let's just put some dates back in actually. So we want to see on the calendar view then when we have our client meetings. So this may only filter, we can put a filter in place where it's literally the task type, which is going to be a client meeting task type. So it's only going to pull through those type of tasks. So if we were to apply tasks on any of the other tasks inside of the list, then we won't be able to see those in this particular view. So if you had applied a due date, so now you can see that you can organize your tasks. We can create some different task types. We can assign out dates. And then what you can do is go ahead and apply due dates to all of these different tasks inside of this list view. And you've got the option to filter out the tasks that you want to see versus the tasks that you don't want to see, or create some additional views that would be really helpful from a management perspective. So one view that you might want to create is a calendar view where you only are seeing the client meetings that you have on the calendar, and you might want to do that at the space level and then filter that through different locations, or you could just have it in this particular list view, or you could create separate list views. So you could have one view for onboarding tasks, one view for offboarding tasks, and one view for client admin tasks. And the filters are exactly the same across the board. So if you click on the filters, you have the option to filter your tasks based on the custom fields, so the task type that you've created, or based on the task types that you have in place as well. So you could say your task type being a client meeting or a billing task, and you could have separate views for all of those things. So that's how I would organize the client onboarding or client admin list inside of the folder. The next question will be, should you invite your clients into ClickUp? And if so, how much access should they have? And what if you don't want them to have access to view all of the tasks or the project tasks inside of ClickUp either? So you've got a couple of options around how to manage that. First of all, when you are sharing access with anyone in your ClickUp workspace, my advice is to first and foremost invite your clients in as guests. So what that means is they're not being added as a paid member, because you will have to pay for that member seat, but you should have an allocation of guest seats that are free where you can invite your clients into the workspace. And in that regards, you can choose what they have access to. They don't necessarily have access to everything. So they may have access to the entire folder, or you might decide to share access to a specific list. So if I want to share access to just this specific list, then I can invite that client into this list and they will only see what is here inside of the list. They won't have access to all of the other lists. So that's something just to bear in mind. So you can see here you've got the option to share this list and share with all the views as well. So when you are doing that, you're sharing all of the views that are associated with this particular list. But you do have the option to choose what level of access they have. So if I'm going to invite my test account, it's going to ask me what level we're giving them access to. So I'm going to choose the guest level because it means they can't be added to spaces, but they can be invited to folders, lists, and even to tasks as well. I can decide then whether they get full access, which means that they can create tasks, edit the list settings, delete the list altogether, or whether they can edit tasks and the list settings, but they can't create. You may be more comfortable with them having access only to comment or just view only access. View only access means that they can't comment or edit. Personally, I use this in my business, and it means that we keep communication inside of Slack because my clients don't necessarily need to leave comments on the tasks that we have when we are doing tasks working on projects. That may not work for you. You may have certain tasks where you do need to tag the client in on the task and you need their input. You need them to have a look over things. You need them to approve certain things. So this is where you can give access for your clients to comment, and they can also update task statuses, but they can't edit anything else or create or delete anything, which is really good. So you'll share that task with your client. They'll have access and be invited into your list. When they open up their workspace, they are only going to see what they have access to. So they're not going to see all of your spaces and folders. They are going to see either a folder or just a list. That's all they're going to see. And so they can just go into their workspace, go where they need to go to view the work inside of ClickUp, which is super helpful. One useful tip is that if you are going to be bringing your clients into ClickUp and you're going to be assigning tasks for them to look at, and you have things that you need their eyes on, is aside from leaving comments in the actual task itself, set up a separate view. So call this view inside of the list, just call it My Task or Task for Action, or you could even call it the client name. So let's just say client name, task to review. So let's set up a list like that. What you can do is filter the view so it will only show the task when the assignee is that client. So you can filter it based on the assignee and then just select the assignee name. So let's just select me if I was the client, for example. Filter it, and then the clients, they only need to go to this particular list view. What you can also do is pin this view at the top, which will mean that it will be just there for the clients to have a look at. You could share that view with them as well. So you're able to share that view, you can export it, you can share that view with them. So your clients only need to come into this particular view on the list to view the task, and then they can go through the task list and revert back to you. So that's one way if you are concerned about your clients seeing. So one thing to note is that you will have to have a list as a requirement inside of this list. So you have to have your main project will always be on show. So we've got our project tasks, and they will always be on show in this list unless you filter the view and you save that filtered view down. So that's one way. So the client name task could be the filtered view for the overall project view. So this view might just show the assignee. You can show whether it's got the due date, the start date, the statuses of each task, or you could clean this up and duplicate this view, so having a separate view. So if you only want the client to see things on a high level, you don't necessarily want them to see all the ins and outs for whatever reason, you can duplicate this view, and then you can have what I would call is your messy view. So you duplicate this view to a list. We'll pin the main project task view, so that is always going to be a view that your clients will see when they come into the list. So in the project task, the main view that your clients will be able to see will hide down who's assigned to what. So we can hide all of this down. We can hide the start date. Perhaps you want to keep the due date so the clients are aware of the due date. We'll just hide all of these columns. So now what we're left with is just the project itself, all of the project tasks, and then we've got due dates and the statuses. So this is what the clients will see. They won't see anything else. But in the new list that we've just duplicated, if we rename that, let's call this one project task, and let's call this one just the project. Right, so what you will have is for the required list view, that can be your main project view, which is a clean dashboard. So the clients will only see the actual project task, and they'll see the due date, the status. We've kept the project phase on show, but that's fine. They won't see anything else. Then now what you've done is duplicated the view, and we've labeled it project task. So in this view is where you can have all of the messy admin on the front page. So even if your client was to open the task, yes, they would still see all of this information. 9 times out of 10, your clients are not going to go and do that level of due diligence. But here is where you can view the assignees, you can assign it to your team, you can set your start and due dates, you can keep an eye on the time that's been tracked for the task, and any other details that need to be added in could be housed and viewed here. Now, what will be good with this particular view is that if it is just you working on this project or working with this client, you can set this view as a private view, so only yourself will have access to it. So you can convert that to a private view. They're only visible to you, and you need to give your client access to be able to see this view as well. This is another way where you can manage what your client is able to see inside of the project listing ClickUp, which is really helpful. So we've touched on a little bit around running the project and onboarding clients. What about documentation? So if you are running meetings with your clients and you want to be able to take notes, document the meetings, what can you do inside of ClickUp? So again, what you'll see inside of our folder is we have a client document. So this is added as a document view as a sidebar view. So the document can serve as a place for you to house all of your agendas, call notes, call agendas, documents that are relevant to the client and the project. So if you have different projects, then you can create a cadence of different projects or different documents within this one section. As an example, you might have a document for the client project, create a scoping document, and then you can create subsequent sub-pages for that particular document. So it could be perhaps you've got notes and action points that come from that meeting, and you can see how that cadence can all be applied and kept or housed within this document. But if we're looking at the, let's go to the kickoff call as an example. So I've created here kind of like a templated agenda that I can build out before we get started with the client. So if you've got your project scope, you've then got your platform access that we're looking at, and then the timeline of the project itself. So what if you get stuck with creating agendas? What if that is just not your thing? Well, you can write your agenda with AI. So we can say draft a meeting agenda. We can have the AI write us out a meeting agenda. So let's generate that and go right ahead. If you like what you see, then you can simply just copy that and add it into your document straight away. So if we like what we see, let's just insert that, and it's going to insert it directly into our document, which is super, super helpful. So now we've got some sort of an agenda, and then you can go through and you can update this. You can make it look the way that you want it to look. Perhaps you can add in some banners there if that's your vibe. You can add in additional dividers just using the / command key. So you can start to make these documents a lot more like the way you want them to be. So we can have some action items. Maybe you just want to put a summary here of action items instead of having a whole table. So we don't actually need the table. So we've gotten rid of the table there. And the reason why we don't need it is as we're documenting our action items, we can list them down. Action item 3. So we've got 3 action items that need to be done. All we need to do is highlight this option, and then we can turn that into a task, which is so helpful. So this task can sit within any of the lists. So if it's for a project specific task, then we can just choose the list that it needs to be added to. Then what you can do is assign it to a team member straight away. You can give it a due date straight away. If you have time estimates that you use on your task, then you can add in those time estimate. How much time do you think it will take? Let's just add in 1 hour, and then you can go ahead and create that task. It's going to send that action item straight to the project list. So this can be done directly from the client agenda. And the best thing about this is as the task is updated, it will update on the agenda as well. So you can always come back to see what the progress is. If it's in progress, are there additional comments? Is there other feedback on the task, and all of the things. So using the documents inside of ClickUp to support your client management is going to be so valuable. You can set up templates of templated agendas or other client documents that you have. even a welcome pack or client service packs, pull them into ClickUp and structure your documents so that you can share them. If you're not used to using the documents inside of ClickUp, I do have a separate video where I dive in on how to make documents inside of ClickUp. Check that video out. I'll make sure to link it in the description so that you can go and find that easily. Another area that is going to help you in terms of managing your clients in ClickUp is capturing data. So going back to onboarding clients, and even when you have finished a project with a client, you always want to be able to capture data in the easiest way possible. And so one of my favorite features is using the ClickUp forms to help you to do that. On the left hand side, we have two examples where you can capture data from your clients. We've got an intake form. We've also got a feedback form as well. So as you can see, these forms are created as standalone forms within the space. So that means that I can share these links with any of my clients and they can just fill them in, and the answers are captured directly into ClickUp. I don't have to worry about jumping into another tool or setting up a Zap anywhere. The answers are pulled straight into ClickUp for me and my team to access right away. Now, the difference between adding forms in this area as opposed to adding the forms in the client folder means that one link can be used. So if I was to create separate forms for every single client, I then have to capture that link and share that with every single client in my different emails or when I'm communicating. And I don't want to have to remember that. That's too much work. So I just need one form, one area to capture the submissions, and this is it. So we've got an intake form in place that is capturing all of the questions that I need to capture for that particular client as an onboarding client. Now, we're not talking about capturing project information. That can be captured in a specific form, and I'm going to do another video on how to capture data for client projects. But in this scenario, we're just capturing high-level information about the client, perhaps their name, email address, key project contacts, their goals that they want to achieve, other elements about their business, and then we'll share this form with our client. Then we have a list view, which is capturing all of the information. So when they fill out that form, that information is pulled through. So the name of the form is the client name, and that's going to be the name of the task that is captured. And then we can have all of the different goals that they have, where they need additional support from us, and we can ensure that we capture that information, and that can be shared with the team as well. Now, we do have a couple of automations in this particular list as well, because of course we want to communicate with our clients. We don't just want to grab information and ghost. So when a task is created, we've got two automations here from a previous demo, but when a task is created, we're sending an email out to our client. So let's open up this automation. This is a very, very simple automation. We're sending it from at the consultancy to the client just to let them know we've received their information and we'll be in touch in the next couple of days, or you can adjust or adapt the text to whatever you want to communicate. Perhaps you've got a link for them to book in their kickoff call, or you've got some additional resources that you want to share with them as they get started working with you. Now, you can also add in a custom signature into this form as well. And I, again, have a separate video on how you can set up email automations inside of ClickUp. Go and check that video out because it will walk you through the steps to get started in sending email communications via ClickUp. One thing to note, you definitely will need to be asking for the client email address on this form to be able to email the clients, okay? Okay, so I did tell you there's a lot that you can do inside of ClickUp to support your client management. Have you got a lot of inspiration? Hopefully you have, and the answer is yes. Make sure you drop a comment below and share your key takeaway from this video. I'd love to know what you got the most value from. And if you are enjoying the content on this channel, make sure to hit subscribe. I would love to make sure you get notified of videos as they are uploaded to the channel.